All right, there we go. Welcome to the Hip Hop Hustle podcast. We're back for another week. I'm extremely excited about my next guest, the one, the only Dephlow. You may know him. He's got 4 albums that he's released over his time. Dephacation was the first, Deph Threats, Sleep is the Cousin of Death, and most recently, Most Definite. And then you had a single that came out in 2022 off the cuff. But man, a great body of work in terms of what you released, really unique in terms of you were hitting some jazz beats, you were having like strong bars, it was like boom bap hip hop. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate that.
Well, I'm always interested in how an artist views their own work. So when you look at your work, when you look at your body of work, I mean, 4 albums is no easy feat to put out, especially in the succession that you put them out. But how do you look back on your work so far?
Well, that's something I haven't really spent a lot of time thinking about over the last several years. It might be kind of weird to hear somebody say it, but like I don't listen to the music. But I feel like for the time that I was active, I felt like it was what I was supposed to be doing at that time. That's the best way I can really put it without sounding self-deprecating. But I feel like at that point in time, what I was saying and what I was doing, the beats that I was, getting, the people I was working with, it was all happening in that time, in that space for a reason. And I think we did the most with that time at that time. So when I look back on those periods, I'm mostly satisfied with that. And to be having this conversation in 2024 and having really released anything, I think like a real project in about 6 or 7 years, I think it speaks to the power of whatever it was that we were doing at that time.
If you had to put your finger on the pulse of what it was, what made it special or what came out, do you have a view of that?
I don't think it was any one thing. I think it was like, again, it's going to sound kind of mystical, but it's like an alignment of things happening. Like timing is pretty much more important than luck sometimes. And in my situation, everything happening the way that it happened, I'm saying that like everybody knows the story, but at the time I'm in college and I'm really trying to just find a way back to the music. So when I'm doing the shoot music videos at the time, and like I ran into A1 years before that, I think on like an Obama campaign or something where Nas was supposed to be there, and I ran into him and I gave him some music at the time. And so when you fast forward and I'm shooting the videos, I'm not making music at that time. I'm trying to find a way back to it, but it just in a roundabout way where I had kind of something to fall back on and then something to actually kind of hustle at the same time, try to make some money. And I do some work with him shooting videos. And I think he might have remembered the music or whatever from back in the day, and he gave me a shot, and everything else happened pretty much in quick succession. Like he said, we were going to do something and we did it. And in this industry, I'm pretty sure you've experienced this over the last several years where you want to be consistent and you do what you say you want to do. And a lot of times the artist might not follow up. The music game is very inconsistent in that way. But this is, A1 was one of those type of people where if he said it, he meant it. Yeah, everything that he said we was going to do, we did.
Why do you think that people in the music industry don't follow through on what they say? Because you're not the first to mention this to me. Like, the classic thing is to be like, yeah, like we'll link up for sure, and then they just never respond, or that never ends up happening. Like they say yes to your face, but the follow through is limited. I always wonder why that is.
Me too. I wish I could really tell you, why people don't mean what they say, but I mean, I think that kind of speaks to integrity and character. I mean, when it comes down to it, it also kind of tells you why the game moves the way that it does, where you hear about things that are supposed to happen and never do, and you wonder why, and then you don't really have to think that deep into it. It's not really a conspiracy. It's just why do certain groups never form? Why do certain projects never come out? Why did certain collaborations never happen? That's usually because somebody didn't follow through. Just communication. That's all. That's what everything really boils down to, is communication. Why things do work and why they don't work.
Yeah. I don't know. I think there's something unique about hip hop because I think it's also so competitive that there is like this energy of like, I still want to retain a competitive edge. And if I feel as though the competitive edge isn't being retained, I'm not going to do it. Or maybe even at the time I felt like I wanted to say yes. And upon reflection, I'm actually like, that's not the right move. And for whatever reason, like I feel like there is a lot of those elements at play.
That's very fair. That's happened to me a few times where I've been thinking like I'm ready to do something with the music, and then I don't. And so I have to eat that. Like I've had to renege on my own commitments on a few times where, to me, when I'm in the process of creating, it sounds great. And then I get to a point where I don't want to hear what's going on. Like, and it might not be me. It might be just something about the sound of what's going on. And I'm like, that's not gonna work. So I mean, but that's every artist, right? You're gonna talk to any artist that say they doubt themselves at some point in time what they're doing, regardless of how talented they might be or people say that they are. You hit a point where you're like, I don't know. But that's the thing, as much as people hate the guy, man, and I have my own issues with him, Kanye don't have those problems. That's one guy I could think of where it's like, I don't think he really doubts what the fuck he's doing at any point in time, even if he might think it's better than everybody else does. If you get what I'm trying to say, like, I'm not trying to really shit on him, but, well, shit's all right. But in his mind, that shit's amazing. You know what I'm saying? I think eventually that type of energy convinces the consumer to believe that shit too.
Well, I mean, that's why you have hip hop artists copying it and saying that they're the greatest and saying that they're the best. And it's like, if I keep saying it, that's how people associate with it. But I don't know. I think Kanye and other artists are different because he has released classic albums and he has released great bodies of work. Whereas like there are definitely artists who claim that they're the best who are just not close to that level. Like there is a clear gap between them.
I've been stuck on just listening to Wolves on repeat for like the last 3 weeks or so. Cause like I didn't listen to that album when it came out. And sometimes it takes me years to get to an album, right? Even if it's dope. The last album that I listened to that came out was Killer Mike shit, like on Teller. And I knew early that was going to do what it did, But when it came to that Life of St. Pablo, like I was listening to Wolves one day and I was like, wait a minute. This fucking record is perfect. I don't know how you feel about it, but when I listen to that record, I'm like, okay, this is the definition. That one, The Real Frames, was 2 records on that album where I was like, God damn, he smoked the shit out this from arrangement to just everything about that shit. The extended version, I would call that record a perfect record. And there's not too many artists in this genre. I hate to say that, that have those type of records where there's depth to it, where it's more than just a verse and a hook and a dope beat. Like that's the simplicity and the beauty of the shit. But at the same time, when you see somebody put that together, you kind of like, okay, I get the genius talk. I get why he feel that way about it. So I give him that.
Yeah, I think that's the important part is you got to be able to see the peak. Like you've got to be able to see, like no one makes every song a hit. It's not possible. But when you see it come together and when you see it formulate and you see the ingredients work, you're like, okay, I see what you're striving towards. I see like what you're constantly working towards. And I agree with you, Killer Mike's project. I mean, that was great. Like I went for a walk the other day and you can hear what made it so good. You can see why it hit people in the right way. Like sonically, lyrically, just even construction of the album, the flow made a lot of sense. Like it was just like you were just like, oh, no wonder. And if you're not doing it to this caliber, then you're never going to be in the conversation to win that Grammy. Like you're just never going to be able to.
I think it was so important for him to not only win, but to get 3 of them at this point in the 50th year of the game. And I heard Joe Budden say something that I won't forget. Like a lot of times, I hate another example. I hate what the fuck he says sometimes or how he says it. But you can't deny this much. He said in the 50th year of hip hop, you don't see the labels really celebrating the game. It's like you seeing, I think he shouted out Massive Pill and Nas. He's like, you see people like this organizing these events, but you don't see the people who have made billions out of this shit necessarily celebrating it. And it kind of, it rubbed me the wrong way when I heard him say it that way. But I also felt kind of fucked up that I didn't recognize that myself. And it needed to be pointed out by somebody. And he was the guy to do that. And that's really, pardon me, that's really the reason why I feel like I still pay attention to those type of platforms in this area of the music becoming more gossip. You know what I'm saying? In entertainment or celebrated on that level, on this side of the water. I don't know what the perception is worldwide of how hip hop works in America, but it might be in reality quite different from how people perceive this shit.
Yeah. Why do you think they're not celebrating it? Why do you think the labels are not the ones throwing the parties, not the ones like backing it?
I think because they probably are surprised that the shit is still, if it's profitable, that it's still profitable to somebody or to a small group of people. I think it's accurate to say that it's about 10 to 20 artists that are probably profitable stateside. And the rest of them are kind of write-offs where they're probably not going to make money outside of their own little region. They're not going to translate nationally or internationally, especially internationally. And that's the weird thing about this culture is that when you break barriers outside of America, it's less appreciated than when you cross state lines, where you cross into one region to another. And to me, I think that's kind of backwards, right? Because the world is so big that people can have instant access to your music, but when they identify with it, when it's relatable and it resonates with them in a certain type of way that's not necessarily grounded in violence and shit, then I think it's a little bit more substantial or productive, and it has a different type of shelf life, longevity, right? So Method Man and Redman can still go anywhere in the world into it, but maybe not so much stateside, whether you know that or not. Right? They might not sell out a 2,000, capacity venue everywhere in America, but anywhere in Europe, I'm pretty sure that's gonna happen any night of the week.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't understand that either. Like there is something about huge state pride in the US that is not, I mean, definitely not the same in Australia. There's a bit of it. Like there's a bit of like Melbourne versus Sydney, but you won't have a problem a Sydney artist selling out in Melbourne and vice versa. Like those things aren't real. It's like, is it good music? Yes, then you will have people come to your shows. But like it definitely feels and like, you know, you see it in the sports. I think the easiest way to see it in the sports is like, you know, in the team lists, they'll say what their name is, where they went to college, like who they're representing. You don't have that. Yeah. You just have who they play for. It doesn't matter really which state they came from. It doesn't matter if they're Victorian, Western Australian, like whatever. So I find that fascinating that the state pride is so strong in every part of the country.
It's unfortunate, man, because as much as there is to see in America, like I would love to be touring different places in the world. Although I will say, like Australia seems like the scariest place on earth.
Why?
You know, you got to hear this all the time, man. It seems like a 15-foot snake might just creep in the house, or like a spider might bite you and kill you. A jellyfish might get your ass out there in the ocean. You know, like it's just a lot of potent animals, I'd say, that's out there that, it's a little bit, I would say it's, you probably got everybody got a lot of hair on their chest out there in Australia, man. I would say, man, everybody probably got a real beard and shit like that, because you got to, man. It's a man's land.
I mean,
I ain't coming out there, but I respect it, though.
I think you not coming out is a huge mistake, number one. And number two, unless you're going like rural, you're not going to see much of that stuff. Like I live in the city, so you're not going to see snakes. That's just not a thing. Outside.
I saw this on YouTube, man. The snake was crawling from one tree to another tree, and it looked like a suburban area to me, man. This shit was scary.
No, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying Melbourne's colder, so you don't have it as much. There are definitely snakes around, but I have literally, touch wood, never seen a snake in real life, like a wild snake in real life.
Oh shit! What?
Yeah. So I've never I've definitely seen many spiders. That's true. I'm not a fan of spiders at all. I've seen many spiders, but like it's not really that dangerous. I went for a swim the other day. It was clear, crystal, beautiful blue water. It was like, and that was it. There was nothing. It was just like chill.
I would regret seeing that part, just the natural beauty of what you have. And I know you all probably don't take that for granted at all, right?
Nah. Like a big thing is for people to like go for drives and like go hiking and like doing all that kind of stuff. Like we went for, I think about 6 months ago, I went for a hike and we just saw a koala just like chilling. Like that shit is really cool. And there are wild kangaroos and stuff that you can see. But yeah, I think it's overhyped how dangerous it is here. And it's only dangerous like really in the wild. Like that's only the time you have to really be worried. But other than that, like, it's pretty safe.
I want to shout out Mason, man, because I was talking to Mason Stroh a couple weeks ago on the chat, and he was somewhere. I don't know. He might have been in Argentina or some shit at the time. He's everywhere in the world camping. And I told him, like, bro, I've never been camping in my life, man. You know what I'm saying? And I can honestly say I've never seen like the natural sky without the light pollution of the city and shit like that. So I'm like, man, it's a lot of things in life that you miss or you're missing that you don't realize you're missing until you see other people enjoying it, right? You're like, damn, like I haven't really experienced certain things that don't cost anything to experience. Like I know I'm gonna go spend $1,200 at a table, or buying you know what I mean, some stupid ass shit that you do every weekend if you're into that type of lifestyle, but yet have not really experienced living things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of camping personally. It's not really my thing, but I think,
oh man,
yeah, I agree with that, but I think you should do it. I think you should do it because I think it's important to almost remember what it's like to have limited things, to almost be like bare bones. And it gives you appreciation for how little you need in life, like actually need, but also just an understanding of just what it's like to be more grounded in the earth. And like you said, be able to see this night sky without pollution and just to be able to recognize how different we've made the world and significantly different. Like the disconnection that we have from, I mean, only 100 years ago, the world was a completely different place to what it is right now. Like, I think those things are important. It's like sitting outside it with a fire and like I think it gives you good energy to just sit outside, listening to music with a fireplace. Like there's something about that that gives you more perspective.
I'm hopeful because I see, kids of the younger generation mind that are kind of consciously aware of being like grounded to the earth and things like that. And it makes me wonder why the music that they listen to resonates with them the way that it does. Because the shit don't make sense to say, like, I need to take my shoes off and go stand in the dirt and listen to Sexy Red. Like that, those two things don't add up to me. You know what I mean? Like in terms of where you want your mindset to be. I would think they conflict. That's all I'm saying. Like it's two different types of energies that don't seem to match up. Like I would think you might want to do that and listen to some A1 or some shit like that. You know. But I think we getting there. We getting there. You got to match up intentions with actions.
Yeah, I think the only distinction, as you were describing it, that I can kind of, and when I try to find a link, and I think it's me stretching, but the only link that I can find is grounding yourself is in the roots of like being free and freedom. And then when you listen to someone like Sexy Red, who can be vulgar and say whatever she wants to say and do whatever she wants to do, that they're similar sides of the same coin. They're just expressed in a different way of like being ultimately free.
I agree with that.
So,
I don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah. So
like you're right, but I don't like I don't like the intent. You know what I mean? Like I just don't like the intent behind that shit because it doesn't produce anything. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the over sexualization of women in hip hop. It feels strange to me when corporates are making lots of money off of women like that.
Are they? Let me ask you this: like,
or even the attempt to make lots of money is enough.
I got you. Because, like, in my mind, it sticks out about how much it costs to present the prototypical woman that they've been promoting for the last however many years, right? I know that's an expensive rollout every time in a lot of different ways, right? That you can put the rapper kid on the dude, get him a haircut, some sneakers or whatever, and chill and watch and you believe it, put it in the car. With them, you kind of got to overhaul, right? You know what I'm saying? You might have to start from the bottom up and make it what they seem to think is presentable or desirable, right? It won't break that mold for whatever reason. And in the 50th year of hip hop, what you see is a saturation of that at this point. And nobody asked for a lot of that shit, if you ask me. But I'm older, so I could be wrong. You know what I mean? Like that might be exactly what they want. It just don't seem to have the type of longevity that other areas of that shit has produced. You know what I mean? Like I can't see myself listening to a lot of the music that I've heard in the last 2 years, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, without saying anything specifically about anybody. No disrespect to Sexy Red and no shit like that. You like what you like. I'm just saying when that's really the only option that you're given, just in different variations of the same shit, not really being given a mainstream choice at all.
Does it make you worry about the longevity of hip hop?
It's over with. The only reason why it survives the way that we're talking about it and the shit that we're talking about is because and I know when I say European, I'm kind of lumping in places that don't actually belong in the European conversation. But the rest of the world, let's just say, has been responsible for keeping hip hop, as we like to talk about it, alive. Like, this shit in America doesn't. They didn't want to hear this shit. 5 years ago, they stopped caring about lyrics and content and shit like that. It's part of the vibe. And that's momentary, right? It's cool for right now. But when I go back and listen to it 5 years from now, it's kind of like, yo, why did I like that shit? Why was I wearing those clothes? Why was I doing my arm like that? You know what I'm saying? Like, I watched a certain video where he was dancing a certain type of way that I'm sure today they're like, why was I doing that? And it's just, hip hop has always been trendy that way. But at the same time, some of those molds need to be broken faster than others. You know what I mean? I remember when it was kind of cool to dance, Laffy Taffy shit, and Atlanta was kind of doing their thing, kind of having fun with music for a while. And that transitioned into the trap shit, where it was all about hustling music and the BMX era and all that shit was going on. And those two things kind of mixed, but kind of took off for Jeezy. Let's put it like that. The Jeezy, Gucci shit like that was really working. And the guys that they signed, once they kind of got to the point where it was like, okay, I recognize the game. I don't make the money being a rapper. I make the money being the CEO. And the artists that I'm gonna put out are coming from regions like Chicago or Memphis. And we see those guys get on the scene. And what it is now, it ain't about fun at all. You know what I mean? It's kind of transition from that shit into that. So I'm in a roundabout way, I'm gonna answer your question about why I think it's over with. It's because when you're not having fun, it's gonna be kind of hard to make money, for the venues and shit like that. Because I gotta worry about some ignorant shit happening, somebody getting hurt. And then for the women, it's kind of like the show value gotta be worse. You know what I mean? Like at some point. Like people gonna want to see Ice Spice once. Not twice. Because I know what I'm gonna get. You know what I mean? I know what that I can go on my phone and see that. I don't feel anything from the performance. That's hip hop. And that's just the difference between rap and hip hop. So why I say this shit's over is because like nobody really wants to do that much work. So I'm gonna let the crowd perform the shit for me. Because it's a hustle.
Do you think he can get back? Do you think he can get back to that? Or do you think genuinely it's over?
When you turn art into a hustle, nobody's really gonna take the time to perfect the craft. I'm gonna try to sell my art as fast as possible, or sell my art as fast as possible. To the lowest bidder. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm gonna sell my masters too at a certain, like, that's when I really was over. You had guys like Justin Timberlake and shit like that selling their masters. It's like, what the fuck's going on where they don't feel like it's gonna have the same value 20 years or lower value 20 years. I mean,
but then do you think that in its essence, because hip hop has always been about hustling and always been about, rising up from your current circumstances to elevating your family, your life, getting beyond what you just normally see. So it's interesting because I'm like, well, then was it always destined to come this way, or did it just take a wrong path?
Hip hop started out with kids, man. With kids, a back to school party, right? If I'm wrong, correct me. I'm not trying to be an asshole about it, but in that the flyer that we all see, like the first flyer was just like some kids organizing to do something.
Yeah.
Back to school, right? And so when you think about it, even in those terms, at some point you graduate to do something else. And it's still supposed to be something for the kids. But when they killing each other, when they kill all each other, it's kind of like ain't no more kids left to have fun. It's supposed to be fun to a certain level. So when you say like it's always been about the hustle, that's just a part of the life. You know what I mean? And trying to make shit work, trying to make ends meet. Like that's not necessarily it's been celebrated in terms of, to me, overindulgence in celebrating the 80s culture of cocaine track. You know what I'm saying? Like that shit has been highlighted in a way where we respect people who destroy their own community, in a level where we don't respect people who built their own communities. It doesn't really it's counterproductive when you really look at it.
I agree with you.
It can't be just about the hustle, or, that can't be a pillar of what it is. But once it became that, this is the end result. You know what I mean? Like, and there's no one person's fault, I won't say it, but I am saying that one of the people responsible is getting their just due right now. I don't have to say no names. You already know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I mean, it's wild what is happening. Wild.
How it works, man. Regardless what you believe in, you can't pretend to be somebody else, man, and fool all of the people all of the time. You know what I mean? And I think like hip hop had gone the way of doing that shit for so long, where you put the rapper kid on and you sell an image where other dudes want to be this guy, women want the guy. I mean, at some point in time, man, you get a chance to kind of see maybe who that person is and who that person isn't. And you ain't really what you thought. And that shit right there is damaging, I think, to the culture. The alternative to doing shit like that is to promote people who are genuinely being themselves and giving you reflections of what their life is really like, as opposed to trying to sell you some shit that they seen in the movie or they hope in it or whatever have you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, this conversation might be sobering. It might be like sad to actually sit down and think about it and be like, oh, maybe you're right. Maybe the hip hop that I knew and the hip hop that I grew up on, that era is well and truly over and it'll never be back.
Well, nah, it'll live as long as the music is alive, right? As long as the music is played, like the shit's not over with. But in terms of it being viable for a commercial business, that's not happening. You know what I mean? But that's the business end's choice, right? That's the Lucian Grange or whatever his name. That's their choice. They're not making an investment in pushing that type of agenda. They can push the button on anybody and put enough money to make people like this shit. You know what I mean? But that's really, what's the priority in doing it? I don't think it's in the best interest of the business. It would be in the best interest of people, right? In the next generation of kids to have something, a different trajectory, to look forward to. But otherwise, it'll be hard as shit to send my kid to school when the teacher might be in, no disrespect, sexy red.
Isn't that weird though, that the company is not interested in what's best for people, only best for money? Like it's really weird in the sense of like the disregard for what's best. Like I wonder sometimes, like, if people did things that was better for the communal good, where life would be and where more people would be living and how they would be living versus looking for their self-interest. Like, I don't know. It's a weird thought to have. Is this like, we can be so kind and cruel at the same time. I think humans are complex like that. And you see both ends of the spectrum consistently.
I think every one of us has some sort of understanding that at some point in time, your survival is what's going to be important. It's not necessarily about accumulation of wealth. Even if that fits into the realm of survival, it's really like a bottom line type of situation. And I mean, that's in us. We might not even really, outwardly recognize that shit, but like, ultimately, that's what it's about. So when I say that, I mean to say that a business or corporation operates no different. In fact, it's amplified. So their bottom line is always going to be their bottom. The interest of the people makes zero difference to them as long as there's people still allowed to pay for the product and to market it to them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that they have, and rightfully so, maybe, in the interest of making money, if that's the objective. I'm thinking that I certainly have a responsibility to the people to have their best interests in mind when it comes to music. I do think, however, that it's not something that should be, even especially if it's known, if we all understand, okay, there's an agenda to kind of feed a beast here while we kind of accomplish two goals at the same time. We can make money, and at the same time, we can guarantee that we'll have a certain advantage moving forward. And to be honest with you, like, that perception is worldwide, man. From people who don't really pay attention or know a difference. You know what I mean? Like, nobody who is only exposed to a certain style or a certain type of artist is going to be privy to a conversation like we have. Like, they probably wouldn't even think that a rapper would be talking this type of shit. But I mean, this is kind of like, to make a long story short, like, the business doesn't have a responsibility to the people. The artist has the responsibility of talking to the people that they have influence on. And at any given point, you could, even if you got on saying shit one way, that don't mean in your interviews and where you get the opportunity to speak freely that you can't contradict what you said in your music and be honest, or at least be impactful in what you're trying to say. You know what I mean? You should have the freedom to be contradictory in that way.
Well, I agree. I like actors do that. Actors play, like, to me, I don't know, there is a persona that everyone has on stage. It's not the true version of you, because, like, you go into a different version necessarily in order to be the best version of yourself, to be the most outgoing, to be the most entertaining. So, like, I agree with you that artists should be able to be like, hey, this is just a song and it's just entertainment. This is not how I actually feel, and this is what I actually think. Like, I actually have no problem with that. I think people would be better off. That's why I like talking to people like you, and not having structured questions, because you will have no choice but to, like, actually find what you feel and what you think around certain things. But I think that's only better for people to know the person behind the music as opposed to just this, like, smoke screen that's been put up.
Yeah, man, that's a weird thing about entertainment, period. The way you know, you kind of are expected to live behind a certain type of mystique. And I think I naturally achieved that just by not wanting to share a lot. You know what I mean? Not really being the type of person that's not aware of the fact that not everybody that follows you is a fan. You know what I mean? Like, so certain things that you want to keep to, well, I want to keep to myself. And then there's other things where sometimes I really do want people to know. But every time that I've done that, I realized, like, you know what, man, like, if you're not happy, man, it don't really matter if anybody else is. You know, people could be happy for you. That shit don't really, it's not going to change how you feel about it. And man, like, I think about a lot of weird shit or shit that people probably don't think about, man. And that's probably why I have sort of sovereign conversation when it comes to the shit that I say on the one hand, I was like deeply entrenched in love with. You know what I mean? In terms of music, the thing that I kind of walked away from at least 3 or 4 times before I finally said, you know what, like I was saying before, like it started out for the kids, and maybe it should stay that way. But I would salute and respect anybody who still has something to say to those same kids. You know what I mean? And it comes in a music form. Then that's important. Like we was talking about Killing White album. I don't think Killing White albums was necessarily for people who were not for people who grew up in the same era that he did. I think he was kind of sharing something with them that they could pick up on and keep over with. And at this point, I'm hoping anybody who might feel like I feel, but just still contributing to the music, still take that approach.
Would you still do that?
Nah. I want to be able to coach, man. Like I don't really want to play the game. I want to coach because my expectations have always been a little too high for the league that I was playing, right? Because I kept thinking like, man, if so and so hit this record, we out of here. If so and so record hit this record, we out of here. Come to find out, so and so heard those records and nothing changed. And it wasn't because they wasn't good or they wasn't interested or impressed or no shit like that. It's because like that's how the game actually works. Like we don't actually know so and so really don't owe us shit or me shit, you know, or you know, it's such a weird ego-driven thing for me personally. We just talking about me personally. My ego is so intertwined with Dephlow that it's kind of like I'm a better person just being me. You know what I mean? Like I'm not the best person. I'm not my best version being Dephlow, man, because you know, it's been a few times out there on the road, man, where you know, I should have made better decisions or really handled shit a little more professionally, man. And so it comes with understanding, you know, that you recognize, like, you know, man, certain shit that you really love isn't always the best shit for you. You know what I mean?
Do you feel like I don't know, when you say that, I'm like, oh, it's kind of beautiful to be able to recognize within yourself that it's not the best thing for you, but it's also like, you know, I wonder what else you've got. Like, I know the creativity tap isn't switched off. Like, that just doesn't happen overnight where you just switch it off and it's gone. So it must still exist. So there is this like dichotomy between the two of you acknowledging that, hey, this isn't for me anymore, but also that you would have the propensity to be able to if you wanted to.
It's hard, man. I heard Method Man say this in the interview recently. He was like, man, you know, once you stop, it's kind of hard to come back with the same type of confidence. I swear, I'm paraphrasing, but the same type of energy. You know what I mean? Like, kind of have to build that type of momentum. minutes, like playing 48 or 47 minutes of basketball, and in that last minute, something happened with the shot clock, and then you got to sit there and wait for 15 minutes and then try to get going again. That shit is, at a certain age, it becomes a little bit more challenging. Because, and I relate this to what Andre 3000 said. You mind if I smoke?
No, go for it.
3K said something, and I understood what he said immediately. He was like, I'm paraphrasing this too, but at a certain age, you don't have no business saying the shit that you was saying when you was 25 and shit. At a certain point, you kind of outgrow certain things, certain subject matters, man, that usually you would hear on average, I just said. You know what I mean? So you kind of figure out a different vibe or a different lane you want to exist in that feels good to you. Because like you always love music, but it's like, where do you fit into the picture? Regardless of maybe what other people think, how do you feel about what it is that you're doing? Do you feel comfortable putting this message out or saying these type of things where you're at this point in your life? And I understood perfectly. It's kind of like, oh, I get more fulfillment out of being able to change somebody's mood in a positive way than I would about telling the truth about the shit that I'm seeing in the world. Because me sharing that don't necessarily make me feel better. It might make me feel fulfilled in the fact that I felt like I knew something and I shared it. And maybe in that way, it's some sort of like contribution, right? But otherwise, man, I think it's kind of like you gotta know what type of energy that you have to share. And I don't know how people perceive my music, but a lot of my shit is angry. You know what I mean? A lot of the music that you heard was coming out. I'm writing as my father's dying, and the music after that is like directly after he passes and shit like that. And the music in between that shit is kind of like, just being honest, is just quick work. You know what I mean? It's like, it was just like momentum. It's like, okay, we kind of got a formula, we work together, it's real easy to go. And so we can make it happen fast. And a lot of the time after that, since then, it's just kind of been a reflection of shit that's happened. And it continues to happen. People that continue to come in. Man, the last 2 years, man, I think I launched about 3 or 4 friends.
Sorry.
You know what I'm saying? That's just gun violence, bro. That ain't even like no shit that you expect to happen at my age. You feel me? Like, not in my 20s and 30s even. 40 years old now. And I'm still losing people that I know that are 40 years old to gun violence. And that's fucking crazy. Shit.
Isn't that an important message to share?
We all already know. And we all already know better. And that's the part where it's like, it don't add up. Because of the fact that we all already know better. So it's not like it's that message to share that we don't already know. That we don't all already know, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's what I mean about the shit being over with. Like, if we were gonna solve our own problems with the music, we would have already did it. But instead, we turn that shit into a hustle. And so you make a quick run and make a couple dollars and get your ass killed in the process if you're lucky. Because most people ain't gonna make no music doing this shit. I mean, make no money doing this shit. I mean, it might look like it's profitable when you start looking at metrics and shit like that. But they'll find a way around that shit too, in terms of having to pay people to make music. I mean, they've already taken artists off the market who weren't streaming enough, to a certain threshold. It's like, I mean, it don't matter to what we're doing over here. Now think about that in the mind of the Dephlow who's just putting his music on SoundCloud. Anyone never gets a chance to hear. I'm saying we did hand in hand because we from the CD era, but I'm just saying like for a kid that's coming up in this era and that same situation, who can't even get his music to a place where somebody like that might have time to listen to it. It's kind of like, oh, shit, fuck it.
Well, that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the the need for attention and the need for virality. And instead of making the best music you can, you're making music that just gets people to look at you. And then once you have the eyes, then you worry about what's next after that. I think that is a huge change in music, is the shift between attention seeking and between being the best artist that you could ever be and representing yourself with music that you can stand behind, sharing true emotional feelings, sharing your perspective on the world, sharing what you see on the world. I think that's been the enormous shift that I've witnessed that's strange to me, is like the music seems to be a vehicle now for something else as opposed to the thing.
Yeah, no, I said this shit, man, and didn't realize like how real it was when I said this shit. And that sounds kind of weird to say, but like, when I said hip hop's a marketing tool, it's not culture, right? And when we really look at this shit now, shout out to Steve Stout. That's what it is. That's what it is, man. It's a hustle, it's a marketing tool, it's a stepping stone, it's an entry point. It's the lowest rung on the ladder to, you know what I mean? Like, it's not even something that you want to claim that you do at this point in time. If you're not one of 10 or 20 people, you don't want to tell nobody you're a rapper. I wouldn't. I mean, I don't tell people this shit. Like it's probably 20 people that I've met over the last month or so, and they had no idea. I just tell them I had an interest in life, and now I'm doing some other shit. You know what I'm saying? But there's very few people that even really that I come across in my path that even know that I have anything to do with music. And that's very intentional on my part, because in America, I'm telling you, it's just this a stigma that comes with that shit, where it's like you're trying. You're constantly trying. And the trying part, for some reason, it's the weirdest thing in the world, right? Because when you try, usually you're striving towards a goal, and eventually you get there. That's to be respected. But not here. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you try too hard, like, that's to be frowned upon. And it's
why? Why do you think that is?
Yeah, you're not gonna like this answer, but and my uncle wouldn't like this answer neither. But shout out to Uncle Tony, man. Like, a lot of times, it's just my uncle. He probably 70, right? And that's who I used to consult with a lot. And I talked to about different shit, and he schooled me on different areas of music and culture. Coming from the West Coast, like me from San Francisco, and he represents Oakland real hard. And he'll tell me about hip culture and African culture, and blaxploitation era, and all that shit. And I have a different way of looking at that shit. Like, that shit is kind of a joke. You know what I mean? Like, that shit is funny to me in retrospect, but like in real time, like, none of that shit is productive. I'm looking back on it, but there's this cool factor involved. Well, I'm getting to more to the point where this cool factor was kind of introduced through that era, that pimp hustle, all of that shit, into the hip hop era, to your Run DMCs and your Cool Mo D's and all of this, right? Where they have a certain aesthetic, a certain style about them. That's considered cool shit. Adidas, Sergio Tacchini, like Gucci, like fucking MCM, all kinds of different fashion brands at this point in time get introduced. And now that's considered cool. And then you move forward and you get to a point where tight jeans was cool. You know what I mean? And now we at the point where bell bottoms is cool again. And all I'm saying is that, like, the cool factor is the shit. It prevents people from doing the shit that's actually productive and progressive. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't cool to acknowledge gay people in rap for a long time, even though the people who were signing their checks by and large, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, it's kind of like, no, like that's not cool. When somebody could have told somebody that shit 30 years ago, that excluding people in a culture that's supposed to include everybody is not cool, right? But it takes somebody to tell you what's cool, and they hire the people to tell you what's cool and what's not cool. Shout out to Fat Joe.
Yeah. I know it's weird. As a fan, like, I don't make my own music. I've never been involved in making my own music as someone who looks from the outside in and just, gets, like, the way I always describe what I do is like, I'm fortunate enough to, like, look through the window into the house. That's kind of how I feel about hip hop. And the more that I see through that window, the more I start to realize that the thing that attracted me to hip hop when I was younger is not true. Well, it was like, I had this idyllic kind of nothing bad view of hip hop. And the more I speak to people, the more I see it's not all sunshine and rainbows. And it obviously never was. But it's like, it's impossible to start to be like, there is a different side of this that is not seen and not talked about. And there is naturally just this, like, black hole that people seem to ignore. Like, it is just what's sexy and cool and fun and all of that. But then there is this other part, that there is darkness within hip hop, within the genre of music, within music industry right now, that seems to be more visible to me personally than it's ever been before. And so my view, therefore, is like, oh, this is cool, but I can't help but start to be like, but look at all this other shit that's going on. Yeah. So I don't know, it feels weird. Like, I feel myself having those thoughts. I feel myself looking at the music industry and thinking about the exploitation of people and thinking about, is this the right message to be sending? Is this, like, all those questions seem to be coming to my mind more and more. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, maybe my view of the music that I love is not the same view that I had before. It seems to be evolving into something more complicated. Like, I have a complicated relationship with it.
Me too. And so I feel like that's fair to say, especially, as you age and mature and certain things mean more to you. And I gave you the example of people that I know at this age who are still dying from gun violence. And so when I hear certain records, I don't hear them the same way. They resonate differently when certain things happen and they hit real close to home, too close to home. And where, you may have even, whatever, you may have whatever familiarity you had outside, doing outside activities. However, like, at a certain point in time, when you are no longer involved in outside activities, man, and that shit live at your doorstep, the things that you hear and you see after that hit different, as they say. You know what I'm saying? And it makes you question, or at least I speak for myself, it made me question what type of energy I feed into. Not to say that anything's my fault. It's just, what type of this shit do I condone? Or how would somebody, it just, certain level of empathy, it's involved at a certain level.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing, though. I think it is important to grow as a person, to acknowledge the contradictions that you see, the things that as life continues in your world, to be able to look at music and to look at art and to be able to look at movies and be like, this resonates differently for whatever reason. So I'm thankful for that, because if that didn't happen, I would also be stagnant. And so, like, it's important to be able to go, oh no, my perception has changed. And a question that was asked of me a while ago, and this always has been sitting in my head, is, when was the last time you changed your mind about something, about a view? And if it's a long time ago, then that's probably you're not in the right place. And so I try as much as I can to be open to being educated and understanding someone else's point of view. Because I think if you can honestly be like, I'm open to my mind being changed, that is more humbling than to be like, no, this is my opinion. I'm going to defend it forever, regardless of the facts that are in front of me. So
Great.
That's just what's happening, I think.
Agreed. And I'm never the type of person who wants to be on the record as saying like, man, hip hop rule lives, man, fuck hip hop. Like, I'm not here to really send that message across, but I am saying that we all at a certain point are gonna have to ask ourselves a very serious question about what this culture is going to be. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't even have to question what it is, because we all get involved from it or with it from different places, right? You know what I mean? Like, I don't mean that geographically. I mean like at certain ages and certain circumstances. It's gonna mean different things to different people. I hear an MOP show, and I don't think about committing a robbery. I think about riding to school with my best friends, even in high school and shit, because that's what we listen to every morning. Shit. I think about reasonable doubt, riding to school with my brother. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have connections to music in that way that aren't necessarily, that don't have negative attachments to it, all fond memories. So it's not like what I'm trying to say is this shit ruined my life or ruined anybody else's life. I'm just saying that we do have a responsibility to make sure whatever we do with it moving forward after that 50 years is our choice.
I agree. Well, man, you actually brought up, you started mentioning albums. That is the great segue into my last question, the only question that I plan on the show. And it goes as follows. If you had to recommend one album that everybody should listen to at least once to get an appreciation of, can be any genre of music, cannot be your own music, what would it be?
I had to say the first album that I ever purchased myself, and that was Into the 36 Chambers. That was Wu-Tang shit. And I picked that tape up because I thought the cover looked cool. I didn't know what Wu-Tang was at the time. I think, like I said, my people's from California, so I was listening to Ice Cube and shit like that at the time. So, yeah, I would say that one right there, because of the fact that it's a perfect example of when you do timeless shit, it lasts forever. And that album, I don't know what year it came out, to be honest with you. I'm not going to sit here and fuck that year up. What I am going to tell you is that when I picked it up to right now, I will play that album front to back. And I don't think that I would have ever picked the microphone up if it wasn't for Wu-Tang.
There you go. Wu-Tang, 36 Chambers. Classic album, iconic album. And man, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you, to get some insight into where you're at within your own view of your music and who you are, and then the broader view of hip hop. I appreciate the time that you've given me and you've given the listeners as well. Yeah, I do genuinely, I have genuinely enjoyed speaking to you. It's nice to hear like your thoughts after being away from music. It's not, I mean, selfishly, it's not nice that you've stepped away from music, but I definitely understand it on a personal level of like you're doing what's best for you. But man, it's been great to speak to you. It's been great to get a little bit of insight behind the music and behind the artist Dephlow and be able to speak to you, man. And I know the fans will appreciate it as well. So definitely we'll have to do it again. We'll have to catch up and see where you're going and whether your perception of the hip hop industry has changed over time. My hope is that although we were a little bit despondent today, that it can still shift and there is plenty of power in the hands of artists, plenty of power in the hands of fans to be able to create music and support music that we all like.
That part is the most important part. Again, man, this what we do with the next chapter. The most important part is that it remains our choice. You know what I mean? But it's been a pleasure, and I appreciate your time.